Whoever's joining us from around Australia and around New South Wales and around Sydney, which is now a city out of lockdown. A very warm welcome to our Cadia presentation by Aaron Brannigan, who's with us now online. We'll get going in a couple of minutes. We've got some good numbers for today. It's not as much fun as all sitting in that room and being so well connected and listening to you all buzzing in that wonderful atmosphere. At the moment, we're thinking we may be back live around maybe December, it's the look of it. But obviously, we're just glad to have our freedom back here in Sydney. Not as bad as Victoria, but still not all that pleasant. So beautiful day here in Sydney, and we're looking forward to connecting with Orange shortly. It's now coming on midday, so I'll start with my. I'm actually in the foyer of my office here at the moment, so people are coming and going behind me. We'll kick off on the midday bell, and I just want to say, as I do always, on behalf of Trevor Sykes, our patron, and behalf of all of you members, what appreciation we have for all of our sponsors who are. Actually, I don't have the page in front of me, so I can't read them all out, but. The Sydney Mining Club operates without a membership fee. I think we make that point often. The entire way that it operates is by sponsors paying for a lot of the costs, and really we just spend the year putting on these great shows, and then the sponsors keep the wheels of industry going. So I would like to thank our sponsors, and we look forward to having you back in the big room so that we can thank you in person. But as we always say to all the members, we ask them to thank you in person and to thank you more than anything by giving you their business and thanking you as often as they can. So our appreciation to the sponsors. We looked at funny old times during COVID. The news developments have been pretty interesting. There's a lot of discovery going on around Australia. Mining industry is rocking along pretty well. Coal prices, my goodness, coal prices are higher than ever. Gas prices are going through the roof. There's an energy crisis in the Northern Hemisphere, if you haven't followed that. In fact, it looks like it's going to be quite threatening as we come into winter. There's going to be shortages of gas. Gas prices are up. More than ever, resources seem to be very hot at the moment. And I think there's been a bit of overshooting on the part of the alternative energy companies and governments in hoping as to supply. So suddenly there's a sort of a race back to coal and gas, which is really interesting to watch. So in other news too, a little bit on that theme, the interesting news that about the announcement of the Americans assisting with nuclear submarines. So Australia inadvertently is getting itself a nuclear industry, which is funny. I think the Rum Jungle mine opened in 1957. We started mining uranium. Australia's moral position, weirdly, has been that, yes, it's okay to mine uranium, but it's not okay to react it, which is actually a fairly, in my personal view, a kind of a puerile, if not hypocritical kind of position. So maybe this is going to open up a future for Australia as in nuclear energy, which, public opinion now says 2/3 of people support a local nuclear industry. And the advances in small modular reactors are going ahead very fast, particularly in Canada and the US. And I think there'll be a lot of movement in that space. So that's probably, for me, that's probably over the last month since we met, that's probably the most significant development that I've been across. So yeah, I think things are pretty robust otherwise. Aaron's enjoying a good gold price, which by the look of his negative cash cost for producing gold, I mean, that's, you know, not many people can say that. Extraordinary results, of course, copper doing so well, and we'll be hearing lots about that. I think that's good for me on my my commentary. Aaron is originally South African. He's worked around the world as a mining engineer. Lives with his wife and son on a farm, so a 75-acre farm in around beautiful Orange, and it's probably. We were just commenting in the warm-up to this presentation about the extraordinary distance there seems to be between. I mean, I'm here on the 20th floor. I think on my tippy toes, I could just about 2 horizons that way, and I just about see Aaron. So close to Sydney, such a big mine. It is like the best kept secret in New South Wales as far as its extraordinary accomplishments and the amazing amount of gold that it produces and has done for a long time. Got a big future ahead of it as well, and all those exploration companies up and down the trend that are now starting to hook into some good numbers. So, yeah, Aaron's a mining engineer, as you'd expect, running a mine, and I guess it's now time to invite Aaron to turn on his camera to join us and to unmute, and I will return the favour by turning mine off. There he is. Good to see you, and I think we're all good to go, Aaron. So I'm going to cut myself off here and take it away.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction, Julian. And good afternoon, everyone. As Julian has introduced me, my name is Aaron Brannigan, and I'm the General Manager here at Cadia Valley Operations with Newcrest Mining. I did want to take this opportunity to thank the Sydney Mining Club very much for the opportunity to talk to you today about Newcrest Cadia and of course our opportunities ahead. But before I start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the Cadia Valley, who are the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as any other First Nations people that are joining us here today. So first up, the disclaimers, and we can get into it. So Newcrest's vision is to be the miner of choice. That is a miner who is valued by our people and our communities, respected by our partners, our customers, our suppliers, and our peers, and celebrated by our owners, the shareholders. The 5 pillars that will make us the preferred partner for investors, communities, government, and employees include that we are a safe and sustainable business, that we have the best people, we are outstanding operators, that we are a leader in innovation and creativity, and that we grow profitably. And our portfolio currently of operating mines is located in Australia, Papua New Guinea, and Canada. Our current operations are obviously Cadia, so near Orange in New South Wales, and it will be the topic of my presentation today. We have the Telfer mine in the Paterson province up in the Pilbara in Western Australia, the Lihir mine in the New Ireland province in PNG, and Red Chris, which is our newest joint venture acquisition in British Columbia in Canada. And we also have exploration tenements in Western Australia, the Northern Territory, in Ecuador, Chile, in British Columbia, in Canada, and in Nevada in the States. So Cadia Valley Operations is Australia's largest gold mining operation, and it is 100% owned by Newcrest. It's located only 25 kilometres to the south of what is the lovely city of Orange in the central west here in New South Wales, and only about 250 kilometres to the west of Sydney. I think Julian makes a good point. It is a bit of a case of New South Wales best kept secret. Cadia's mining history actually began in 1851 when traces of copper were discovered near Cadia Anglon Creek, which is a creek that runs through the valley here. And it was about 10 years before the Scottish Australian Mining Company commenced major mining works here. And they erected an engine house and smelting works here on the property. And to this day, they are in place here. They are heritage listed, and we do look after them. Cadia Village was soon established after the commencement of mining, and it survived through several stages of mining activity for not only copper and gold, but also for iron ore in the later years, before it was deserted some 80 years later in the 1940s. In its most prosperous times, the village itself had a population of about 600 people. It had a general store, it had a bakery, a post office, a butcher, a shoemaker. There was a school here, and then of course, there was a cemetery as well. And Newcrest Mining discovered the Cadia Hill ore body in 1992. And today, Cadia comprises 3 mines, including the Cadia East underground mine, which is one of the largest gold and copper deposits in the world. Cadia East commenced commercial production in January 2013, and we do use a large-scale mining method known as panel caving, or more commonly known as block caving. We run a 24-hour-a-day, 365-day-a-year operation, even in the rain and even on Christmas Day. And the other 2 parts of the operation are the Cadia Hill open pit mine. That's currently being used for tailings deposition, and then we also have the Ridgeway mine, which is an underground mine, and that's currently in care and maintenance. At Cadia, Newcrest produces gold doré bars from a gravity circuit, and then we have a gold-rich copper concentrate that's derived from our flotation circuits in our processing plant. And those concentrates are piped to a dewatering facility in Blaney, which is about 20-25 kilometers down the road. And then it's sent by rail to Port Kembla for export. And that export market is predominantly in East Asia. And in the financial year FY21, so ending 30th of June this year, Cadia produced 765,000 ounces of gold and just over 106,000 tons of copper. And the latest exciting development is the approval by the Newcrest board just in August this year of the Cadia PC12 Pre-Feasibility Study, which enables us to commence with the feasibility stage and the early works program for PC12. But I'll talk about that more shortly. So I just want to spend a few minutes now just taking you through the production and cost story here at Cadia. So Cadia achieved 32 million tons mine production last year and a mill throughput of the same amount. And we achieved an all-in sustaining cost of negative $109 US an ounce, which resulted in a free cash flow of $1.2 billion US pre-tax. And whilst Newcrest is Australia's biggest gold producer, copper represented around about 22% of Newcrest net revenue in FY21. And copper is expected to become a higher proportion of Cadia's revenue over the next 30-odd years that we still have of mine life. And as you would know, copper at the moment is a hot property as the pace of global decarbonisation increases, and that's evident in the copper prices in the market at the moment. But for example, according to the Copper Development Association, a pure electric vehicle can contain more than 1.6 kilometres of copper wiring, and driving up production and lowering the all-in sustaining cost is a tremendous achievement for us here at Cadia. However, it obviously wouldn't have happened without the great team that we have in place here on site. And I'd like to take this opportunity as well to acknowledge the support of not only the New South Wales government, but the federal government as well, which took action early on in the pandemic to ensure that our industry and Cadia could continue operating. And this meant maintaining jobs and keeping up the steady flow of royalties and the company tax, which operations like Cadia provide to state and federal governments to fund essential services like healthcare and law enforcement and community infrastructure. So in Australia, in an Australian first, here at Cadia, the construction of an exciting new molybdenum plant will have wide-ranging benefits for Newcrest over the long term. Molybdenum, or moly, as it's known for short, is a silvery white metal used in steels and superalloys to enhance strength, preventing corrosion and reducing brittleness. And as it's also used in lubricants and fertilizers and color pigments as well. And moly is sometimes mined as a primary product, but it is more commonly recovered as a byproduct or a co-product from copper or tungsten mining, which is what we're doing here at Cadia. And construction of what is Australia's first moly processing plant started in February last year, so February 2020. And what we're doing is we're literally tapping into the concentrate pipeline that runs to Blaney, extracting the moly from the copper concentrate stream via a flotation process to produce a concentrate in dry powder form that is around 50% moly, and then pumping it back into that pipeline and sending it on its way to the Blaney dewatering facility. This moly plant was designed using the latest intelligent 3D modeling software, which has already provided some excellent insights throughout the design process and offered some big benefits over conventional packages during construction and commissioning. I think the ability to be able to see the final product through the 3D modeling software has enabled us to situate and position the different parts of the infrastructure where they're most relevant. This moly plant during its construction employed about 140 people, and it will create an additional 15 new full-time roles when it goes into operation. For the life of the mine, it is expected to deliver some 4.1 million pounds of moly per annum on average, and this will create an all-in sustaining cost reduction as a byproduct credit of around about $50 an ounce. That's $50 US an ounce. So it is, with Cadia's gold grade in that having a declining profile, extra kickers like this are most certainly a benefit to us. As well as the moly plant, we also have the development of our PC12 cave. That is the next step in Cadia's block caving journey. The PFS underpins an optimized mine design, which we expect will deliver higher gold and copper grades, but it also enables us to defer some of the capital expenditure in the medium term. Newcrest has a significant financial headroom to fund the construction of PC12, together with all of our other organic growth options from our expected cash flow generation over the development period and our strong balance sheet that we have in place. And this project, together with the expansion project that we currently have in progress in the processing facility, is expected to sustain Cadia's position as one of the largest, lowest cost and long life gold mines in the world. The pre-feasibility study included some of the following findings. So that project will have an estimated total capital expenditure of about 1.3 billion Australian dollars. It has a 17-year mine life from first production, and will average around about 15 million tonnes per annum out of that panel cave over that 17-year period. There's total ore production of about 258 million tonnes of ore, producing about 3.5 million ounces of gold and about 660,000 tonnes of copper at an all-in sustaining cost of around about 54 Australian dollars per ounce. So around about 40 US dollars an ounce. And an early works program, which is pretty much critical path activities for the establishment of PC12, is expected to commence next quarter. So in that October, not next quarter, this quarter, sorry. So around about December 21, we should kick off the early works program for PC12. So in May this year, Newcrest also announced a goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2050 for operational emissions, while working across our value chain to reduce our Scope 3 emissions. And given our experience with identifying and applying innovative technologies, Newcrest has the potential to be at the forefront of meeting the challenge of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And as an industry more broadly, the Australian mining has the ingenuity, technology, and capabilities to take on this challenge and reduce our carbon footprint. And this has been acknowledged by the Prime Minister, and the need to move to a net zero is also recognised here in New South Wales and globally. And Newcrest has a target to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions intensity by 30% in the next 9 to 10 years by 2030. And I'm pleased to say that we've already made a pretty significant progress in that space. In December last year, you may have seen that we entered into a 15-year renewable purchase power agreement, or a PPA, with a wind farm developer in relation to a significant part of the future projected energy requirements of the Cadia mine from the Rye Park wind farm, which is down near Young, further south in New South Wales. And when combined with the forecast decarbonisation of New South Wales electricity generation, this PPA is expected to deliver a reduction in Newcrest greenhouse gas emissions of around about 20%. And it is obviously a significant step towards achieving our 2030 target. So from January of 2024, when commercial operations are targeted to commence, Newcrest will contract about 55% of Rye Park's planned 400 megawatt output, which is the equivalent of more than 40% of Cadia's projected energy demand from calendar year 2024. This Rye Park wind farm will become the largest wind farm in Australia, directly enabled by the corporate PPA that we've put in place. And in total, Rye Park will offset more than 1 million tonnes of carbon emissions per annum, or in layman terms, the equivalent to removing 330,000 cars from the road each year. So a study by environmental and community consultants, Umwelt Australia, which was released earlier this year, showed that Cadia made a pretty major contribution to the Central West community and economy. And the study found that Cadia provided more than $1.7 billion in value to the local region, which supports more than 3,200 direct and indirect jobs. And it also contributes to mining trending as what is now the third largest growth industry behind health and tourism over the past 5 years in this region. We surveyed almost 1,000 internal and external stakeholders, including local government, community groups, and service provider representatives. We surveyed some of our own employees, contractors, and suppliers, and neighbouring landholders, and then of course the broader community as well. And according to this study, Cadia's operations are pretty firmly embedded in the local community, with approximately 85% of the 1,830 direct employees and contractors actually living within the local government areas of Orange, Blaney, and Cabon, which are the three local government areas in this region. And that workforce injects more than $500 million annually into the regional economy, not only living locally, but spending locally too. Cadia itself invested about $2.9 million through community and education programs in the local government areas, with the greatest proportion of donations being directed towards community infrastructure projects. And this important contribution was widely acknowledged by 95% of the key stakeholders, 94% of the broader community, and 93% of neighbouring landholders who were surveyed. And our team also contribute enthusiastically when it comes to cleaning up our local environment. In fact, in June this year, team members from every department here at Cadia participated in a massive site-wide cleanup to coincide with World Environment Day. And it was great to see our workforce coming together to participate, because we all have a part to play to contribute to the overall health of our area's ecosystem and to help create a site we can be proud of, not only now, but well into the future as well, as we do have a pretty long life operation here. Newcrest's $20 million community support fund is also making a pretty significant difference for communities in this region. Clean hands have become very important over the last 18 months across New South Wales and Australia. The freestanding hand sanitizer dispensary program enhanced the availability of hand hygiene infrastructure for residents within the Orange, Blaney and Cabonne LGAs to prevent the spread of COVID-19 when it was in the peak of the pandemic. And this program installed 100 pedal-activated sanitizer dispensers in publicly available community locations, which included places like sports fields, playgrounds and parks, and has thus far been a great success. And Newcrest's Business Beyond the Curve program, which provided assistance to small businesses to restart following the government-imposed lockdowns in 2020, that provided them with not only information and support, but also financial assistance to continue beyond the curve of COVID-19. This funding actually enabled 78 restart small grants totaling about $160,000 and 40 start restart large grants totaling about $165,000. And we also held 5 workshops totaling about $10,000. And that was just to make small businesses more resilient, considering the impacts that they'd suffered during the pandemic and the lockdowns that had occurred. We've had excellent feedback from the community, and the program even featured in a Minerals Council of Australia national advertising campaign. And I guess sometimes people who don't live in mining regions aren't really aware of how much mining gives back at a local level. And Cadia was delighted when the MCA chose to highlight the Beyond the Curve program and its national There's More to Australian mining campaign that occurred in 2021. And the campaign ads filmed in and around Orange, here in Orange, earlier this year featured a cafe general store. It featured a family startup business, a wedding reception, and an accommodation provider, and a small goods manufacturer, and had them telling their stories of how the program provided an important boost after their businesses were hit quite hard by COVID-19. But I'll let Mick from Molong Sweetness Cafe tell his story. There you go. All right, so thank you very much for your time this afternoon, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. The audio fell out a little for me on that, Aaron. Thanks very much. I'm sort of interested in I've got a Q&A section down here, and if anybody out there listening has a question, at the bottom right hand of your screen, you'll see a little Q&A box. Can you see it down there? So if you just go in there and you can drop any questions that you have in, and I'll get Aaron to field them. So it'll jump back between Aaron and I believe now, whoever's speaking. Aaron, a little bit on the mining side. What are the main things that control your recovery? I mean, you float the copper off, and then the gold goes to doré by gravity. Is that?
So we have a number of we have gravity circuits that we collect the coarse gold from, and then the rest goes into the flotation circuits. So it's a pretty high gold grade copper concentrate that goes off to Blaney in the pipeline.
So what are the main things that, I guess the question was, I've got some questions coming in here now, I'll switch to, but what are the main constraints? Is it, you got to fine grind, is a grinding size, that'd be your main concern, would it?
Oh, so from a recovery perspective, yeah, so throughput's probably the one that impacts our recovery the most, which is the stage 2 of the Cadia expansion project in the mill is working towards resolving that. So for those who are aware, who aren't aware, we have a 2-stage expansion project in the processing plant at the moment, and the first stage will get us up to 33 million tonne per annum throughput rate, processing rate.
Yep.
And then stage 2 gets us up to 35 million tonne per annum, but it also has some recovery benefits as well. Okay,
so I've got some questions here rolling in, quick and fast. Kate Smith would like to know what moly is used for, and while you're on it, Kevin Heather has asked if you have any rhenium in the moly, that's an informed question if I ever heard one.
I was going to say, so Kevin, sorry, I'm not aware whether we have any rhenium in the moly concentrate. I haven't heard anything of the like. So sorry, unaware.
If they're producing it, they haven't told you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But what's moly used for? Lubricants, yeah.
So yes, lubricants, but it also enhances the strength of steels and super alloys. It prevents corrosion. It reduces brittleness. It's used in fertilizers. It's used in paint pigmenting.
Wow.
And yeah, lubricants as well. So just for temperature reduction.
There you go, Kate. There's some pretty handy stuff to be mining. Here's an interesting one from Peter Doherty, who's interested in the block caving operation. He said, can you show us any plans or photos? So like that would take a little bit of hunting around in your machine right now. Even if you're going to share that screen, unless you had a diagram lashing around the office there for us, it's probably a harder one to throw up.
No, sorry, Peter, I don't.
Yeah.
Not in my office. No, sorry about that, Peter. I mean, if I can explain it, but basically what we do is, for what it's worth, and I apologize if I'm telling anyone how to suck eggs here, but basically what we do is we create an extraction level at the bottom of the ore body, and then a level up. We create a cave by literally drilling and blasting out a big room, so that the ensuing ore body above that is open and unsupported, and it's able to effectively fail thanks to gravity. And then as it comes down, it breaks up and it comes through. We mine drawbells, which are like funnels, and the rock just keeps pouring into those, and then we bog it out with loaders off to a crusher and on a conveying system up to surface.
Yeah, do you get any problem? How do you your feeding work? Is that pretty successful for you? I mean, that's obviously with block caving. That's the, when the birdseed feeder gets a big chunk of birdseed in it, it stops feeding the birds.
Yes. So fortunately, sorry, Julian. Yeah. So fortunately, with the gravity, and as we draw out the bottom, the actual rock mass that's sitting above the extraction level, that rock mass actually grinds itself up. So as the cave matures and you have a bigger rock pile, as it's drawing its way down into those funnels or those drawbells, it actually grinds itself up. So it is quite easy to handle. So we mine with R3000s at the moment, Caterpillar. Yep. 20-ton buckets, so we take 20 tons at a time out of a draw point.
Okay, here's some more. We've got plenty coming, so we've got plenty of time too. So we'll work our way through all of these. This is quite a good way to do it. Re the molly plant. John McIntyre would like to know, re the molly plant. Should we understand that you currently recover molly but don't get full credits? Is that right?
So molly is a byproduct at the moment in our concentrate. So it is recovered, but it sits in our copper concentrate that goes off. But to answer your question directly, no, we don't get full credit for it. Which is why we built the molly plant. So we will pull it out, bag it. As I said, we plan to do on average around about 4.1 million pounds. To put that in terms, it's probably around about 1,800, 1,900 tons of molly concentrate per annum.
Okay, and that'll just be bagged up and sold as a separate stream. And I think that answers John's follow-up question where he was asking, how it would find its way to market or in what form. Nice to hear from Russell Mears, I believe Order of Australia with merit, Russell Mears, in fact, if I'm not wrong. I noted that I know that you said the tailings are now being sent to the old open cut. What approval processes were needed to do that?
Happened a bit before my time, but my understanding was it was the usual regulatory approvals required. So through DPI. Yeah. So that would have been back in 2018. I think that's when we had the slump.
I was laughing to myself here, Aaron. This question came in from, I better not lose track here. Says, are you worried that John Halliday will find another Cadia for AQX? I don't think it'd be a worry, but it's obviously a funny comment. Colin Seaborn, he says, I noted that you said the tailings are now being sent to the old open. Oh, that was Russell Mears. Sorry. Did I miss Russell's question then? I hope not. Anyway, Russell, if I missed you, I think I might have, if I swapped them around. Here's one from anonymous attendee. This is very mysterious. With regard to your net zero target, have you looked at altering your drilling practices to reduce Scope 1 emissions? Okay, well, thank you, anonymous attendee. I could imagine where you're from. Do you need to answer that? You don't have to.
I don't know what drilling practices this is referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll move past.
We do very little drilling here, so I'm not sure what drilling this is referring to.
Oh, maybe this is the. Here's another one from anonymous attendee. What equipment is used within the gold room? Shaking tables or leach reactors? Well, that's not a very informed question because you don't have them in the gold room, do you?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll just sort of stay with. We'll stay with the more informed questions here. what's the head grade going to be at the 33 million tonne throughput? Is the question from Alex Tunadine.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we actually have a declining grade profile now, and over time, our grade profile. So I'm assuming we're asking gold grade. It will get down to around about 0.4, 0.5 grams a tonne. So we do have a declining grade profile that sees our grade reduce over the next probably 4 or 5 years. It'll come down to about 0.4, 0.5 grams a tonne.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, what a model about the Cadia is for us, about the economies of scale and actually being able to move to larger and larger economies as the mine matures.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Julian. I did want to make that point that you know it's part of the trade-off. You know, as we have this declining gold grade profile of ours, ramping up the tons to what will be 35 million tons per annum after the expansion project is completed. You know, we're still a sustainable business, delivering a fairly significant free cash flow benefit to the organisation.
Yeah, right.
For the next 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, when you certainly got your costs under control, even at low head grade. So it's quite amazing.
Exactly right. Yes.
There's another one here from Kevin Bagust, who I presume it says. You might give us a bit more background there, Kevin, but he's an existing equipment supplier, keenly wagging his tail, asking what we can do to assist your future expansion and operation. Well,
that is a wonderful invitation, Kevin. Not sure. I mean, I noted that Kevin stated that he was an existing equipment supplier, so not sure who it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we might hear more from him. In the meanwhile, Peter Doyle would like to know. Hi, I remember from previous exposure to Cadia that the SAG mill had a load of about 100 megawatts, which in those times when I looked at it was about 1% of New South Wales installed generating capacity. Does the planned wind farm have much excess capacity for other users? That's an interesting question.
Does the wind farm have much excess capacity for other users? So we'll be using around about half of the power generated from Rye Park. I think it's about 55% from memory. So yes, absolutely. Sorry, who was it that asked that question? Peter. Yes, absolutely. We'll only be using around about half of the capacity. So it was a 400 meg wind farm.
How interesting! You know, here we are in New South Wales grinding rocks with wind, and over in Western Australia at the DeGrussa mine we're grinding rocks with sunshine. So you can't say we're not moving with it. So this
stop progress, Julian.
That's we've got a really good flow of questions here. Here's one from Kevin Heather again. What is the plan for Ridgeway? Why is it on care and maintenance? Is the ore exhausted, or is there another lift being developed?
So no, the ore is not exhausted. I think our automation program at Cadia East will go a long way to enabling us to get back into the Ridgeway mine. So we actually have a fair amount of reserves in Ridgeway at the moment, and as Kevin doesn't point out, but there is still a few million tons left in lift 1, and then there is another potential lift below that in lift 2, Ridgeway Deeps lift 2.
Oh, here we go. Here's another one comes in from David Hobby, who says, given Cadia's quote, longish mine life, I say, is Newcrest still actively exploring to expand Cadia's resource reserve? So I guess that means within the immediate environment, I would think, yeah.
So in the immediate environment, yes, absolutely. We do have a drilling program planned in the valley itself. Being a block cave mine, the majority of our ore body, almost all of our ore body is in fact in reserve. But we do have plans for a drilling program to seek additional subsidiary ore bodies in the valley.
Well, we're going great here, Aaron. His one comment came in from Belinda Bird correcting me, saying it's by the way it's John Holliday, which it was previously up above. It was John Halliday, I think I announced. So yes, John Holliday did the very important discovery work at the early stage. I used to have a friend called Sandy Holiday, and his friends, his nickname was Weekend at the Beach. Okay, Colin Seaborn. I noted that you said the tailings, we've had this one. So what approvals were needed? So that was before your time. You're excused from that question. David Sasson, wish this wouldn't jump just as I'm about to read it. Can Aaron estimate the value of Pacific Copper royalty, which used to exist before it was bought back by Newcrest in the late 1990s? Newcrest paid, I think, 14 million to buy back the royalty. What has been the return on investment on that repurchase? Well, I think I can answer that, an absolute shitload. You'll be excused on that one because it's ancient history to you, right?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Julian. Sorry, David, can't help you there, but yeah, I have to agree with you there.
Yeah, no, you can use my answer in the meanwhile, David. Russell Mears, my question was actually about what exploration they are doing around Cadia and the Central West. Okay, so what? So we don't learn a lot. I guess what Russell's saying is that we don't learn to, because of the size of your quarterly reporting. If you're a smaller company, we'd hear about everything. What Russell's probably asking for a little bit more colour on what you're doing around the place and in the Central West. Are you up on that, or are you?
We actually, at this stage, we aren't doing anything in the broader region. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So they're not just secretly doing it and not telling the guy down at the Cadia mine.
Not that I know of, no.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. Okay, so where are we? That coloured. Despite being in, oops, geez, we're coming in thick and fast. Every time they come in, they jump on the screen here.
Yes.
Despite being in a VMS belt, the metal assemblage appears to be related to a porphyry copper system. Yeah, well, I think it is.
Yeah, it is.
What is the age relationship to the Siluro-Ordovician volcanism? You're asking a mining engineer, like as much as. You want to be excused on that one too, Aaron?
If I could, please. Sorry, okay. John.
Okay, unless you've got a geologist in your drawer there that you want to pull out.
I keep them out in the field or underground is my preference.
Oh, here's one from Johnny Mack. At the gold grade of 0.6 grams, which I guess means, what's that equivalent?
So 0.6 grams a tonne, yes.
Yeah. What will the copper moly grades be? Yeah. Oh, so he's asking a reverse question.
Yeah, so moly grades, I'm not sure. Copper grade pretty much remains consistent. So it's around about 0.4%. And it's actually a good question because it is only the gold grade that has that declining profile. The copper grade pretty much remains static or constant at around about 0.4%.
Okay, very good. Thank you. There's your answer, Johnny. Okay, here's one back from Kevin Bagust. He said, we have a lot of vibratory screens operating at Cadia and Telfer. Well, what you can do to help is now obvious. And what you can do to help Kevin, Aaron, is to just buy lots more vibratory.
That's right.
So what a good chairman I am. So I just help everybody out with their answers. Here's one from Rod Elvish. Block caving suggests subsistence. He said subsistence, but it's meaning subsidence, I'm sure. So presumably coming to the surface. At Kiruna in Sweden, they have to regularly move the town. What are plans for future land use on affected lands? Now, I actually, every time I fly over Orange, I shuffle over to the side and look out the window to see how the hole's going. And it's a pretty small. Do you know where the area of the crater is? It what, 20 hectares or something?
So no, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, and I wouldn't want to lie to you. But noting that PC1, which was the original panel cave for Cadia East, is really the only cave that actually holds through to surface. So all the other caves actually stop before they get to surface.
Oh, right.
So it doesn't actually subside vertically anymore. Everything else is more horizontal subsidence. But from all of our modelling, the subsidence over time effectively remains within the footprint of the operation.
And immediately above the block cave, which is very different to, I mean, up in the Hunter Valley and the Bowen Basin, they're sending these long walls through, and they're easing the land down quite a lot. In fact, the power poles tend to sort of bend in and out, and stretch and loosen the power lines as they go through, and so there's a lot more wriggling it. But they're very concise craters. Now, Aaron, when you were saying that they don't come right through to the surface, is that because you cut a slot or a ballroom or a plat above the ore body to prevent it from?
No, we basically just stop mining it when it becomes unpayable, and then just with the bulking factor, it ends up just freezing after we've mined it. So there will be subsidence, but it's more horizontal subsidence that falls into what was the original crater. So there is movement, and that's considered subsidence as well. But we don't actually suck it vertically down right to surface.
Yep. Okay. Well, the questions are gently slowing down, so which is good because I was having trouble keeping up with them. We go now to Brad Brown, who says, will you ever run out of room for future plant upgrades on the existing Cadia processing plant footprint?
Brad, apologies if I'm not answering your question, but if you're referring to the current plant upgrades between now and the end of next calendar year, then no, that's all been designed. That's all fine. So we have the footprint available for.
Okay. That's what is really interesting is when you go to Lihir Island and you talk about running out of real estate. It's like a game of Twister. They're trying to find spaces because the steep slopes of the island, they've got the ocean there, they've got the ocean wall, they've got so many things to fit in. I think they've actually had to scrap the geothermal program there because there's just no room to operate. But you're saying you don't have that problem. Andrew Nucky says, what constraints is Cadia experiencing with regard to skill shortages and limitations in the current industry and cross-border environment? Well, that's a really good question. I was
going to say, Andrew, that's an excellent question. At this stage, we're actually doing okay. I think COVID and the border restrictions, we've obviously had to put a number of things in place, and I can give the audience an example. So we had, and I won't mention their name specifically, but we had a contracting firm here doing some work for us in PC23. And with the cross-border restrictions that were brought on by the pandemic, what we actually ended up doing is shuffling the workforce. So East Coast people that were working on the West Coast were brought home and vice versa. And we just swapped people around. That's basically what we did and have been doing. We do a fair amount of development and upskilling of our own workforces as well, and bringing people in. So it's fair to say that some very specialist skills have been challenging at times with the restrictions, but we've managed to work our way through it and get people across the borders as and when required.
That's the advantages of being a bigger company. So
yeah,
great
yes.
answer.
But sorry, Julian, just lastly on that point though, I think the mining industry is well aware of the fact that skill shortages and limitations are going to be a reality for industry in general. I have visions of the early 2000 boom where we do suffer skill shortages, and this pandemic is making it more difficult. And it's pretty sad when you hear the mining schools shutting down as well, the universities stopping their mining programs. That's always an issue for us, and we pay for it. We pay for it when things start ticking up again. No,
the education is a desperate story in Australia, and it's a disgrace, really. And I can say that, you probably can't. Russell Mears is asking, in this age of climate change, what are the current and future water sources, and how reliable are they? Aaron?
So I've been, let's call it, unfortunate to have lived through the or spent some time in the last drought here in this region. I think it's fair to say that we've become pretty good experts on water conservation and recycling. We do have a few other opportunities that we are looking at. I'm unfortunately not in a position to talk about at this stage. But yes, I don't know if anybody spotted on my my molly plant slide on the top right hand corner of that photo of the molly plant. That is that's the Upper Rods Creek Dam, which is our water storage facility here on site, and it is full, which is a beautiful sight. Because if I showed you that same photo, call it 18, 24 months ago, there was very little water in it, so we were running very close to the wind back then.
Okay, so it is front of mind. You're working on things, and you will find out in due course. So another question, any long-term plans to backfill the underground workings?
It's another good question, and I have heard that question even in the community. The issue that we have is that all of our panel caves are actually interconnected. So you don't have there is no separation between the various panel caves. They are actually they're against each other. There's no pillars in between. Yep. So at this stage, the answer is no.
Yep.
It's not something we can do.
Geez, if you look at the Woodlawn open cut, there's certainly holes in the ground are worth a lot of money these days. So, okay, well, we are drawing towards the end of our time together, and I have another question here from actually Gary Lauder, who I just happened to know was instrumental in the discovery of the North Parkes deposit.
Okay.
But what proportion of your water, the water you use, is recycled? Gary asked.
So it's an interesting one. Because when we're in low water availability times, because we're a no release site, we had our water recycling up at around about 85%. 85%.
Wow.
And the use of the open pit more recently has actually, for tailings deposition has actually been very beneficial to us, because it's allowed us to recover a lot more of our water, whereas you can appreciate when you pump your tailings out onto 800 odd hectares of tailings facilities, evaporation takes away a lot of that water. So we've had a fair amount of benefit from putting the tailings in the open pit as well, because it's a much smaller surface area.
Yeah, right. Yeah, less wind. So look, I think we've pretty good there. I must say, the Sydney Mining Club is much easier to chair when I ask the questions. Sometimes we get the old question that's got a speech in front of it, and when you're the chairman, it's kind of like, I actually usually have a loaded gun under the lectern for the Sydney audience, because they have this strange idea that they own the Sydney Mining Club, which they do. Look, before we got going, I think we've just come to a nice end. So if anyone's thinking of more questions, I think we're great now. Thanks. And it's been actually a wonderful, I think we've got a really good feel for each other's interests too. Aaron, we were saying beforehand that given that this, we're an investing community down here in Sydney, and I'm sure if you don't hold stock in Newcrest today, you definitely should. We would, love to have some ongoing, and I know Simon Troeth, who is ex-Minerals Council and has now joined you in External Relations, is watching and listening, because I know that because he's been texting me. Okay. Yep, everyone, we're done on questions, so that pleases me a lot. So what I wanted to say is we'd love to have an invitation for an investor event up there with Sydney Mining Club. We'll put our weight behind it. If you'd like to connect better with the Sydney audience, and you can see from today there's a huge interest in your project. I think given that we live so close together, Aaron, it falls to you and me to bring our two communities together, and the thing is that we do it for financial benefit. So if you'd like to, and maybe Simon would help us to see what sort of an event we can put through.
Yep.
Let's keep that conversation running.
So Julian, what I can say is, and COVID's obviously changed everything, but it was in 2019 we actually had an open day here at Cadia, where the gates were opened, not literally, but we had bus tours come through from Blaney, and we had people from all over the state. It was a really good event, and I do know that we were in the midst of arranging an investor tour here, probably just before COVID hit us. So as things start easing and things start getting back to, I guess, what is the new normal, we'd be happy to start opening the operation up. And
I guess you can gather from the style of the questions here, you've got a lot of really, very informed mining people who, and some of them are even your neighbours exploring and different, they're our members as well. We've presented other companies from up and down the trend there. All of that news is really interesting, and I guess you guys are always watching for it as well.
Yep.
But we definitely would up for that, and really, today's my first time to meet you as well, so it's been great to get to know each other, and we'll look forward to keeping that running with Simon's help. Thank you, Georgina and Carol, who were instrumental in getting this running so seamlessly. Thank you both, and I think we're good. Have you got anything you'd like to say to your audience as we finish?
Julian, I just wanted to say thank you very much for taking the time and making the effort to join us today. And Julian, once again, thank you to the Sydney Mining Club for inviting me to participate and to present. And I certainly look forward as COVID restrictions start easing and we start moving around again. I look forward to meeting not only the members of the mining industry, but members of the investment community as well. So thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, if you've got not many people can talk about having a negative cash cost production. So we'll give you the chance to brag about it. Look forward to seeing you then. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you for the next event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.